Welcome to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. This podcast is a production of Elevate, an online learning platform for fundraising event professionals. We're coming to you today from the studios of the AV department. Please welcome our hosts, Kristen Steele and Samantha Swaim.
Hello, welcome to the Fundraising Elevator. Very excited today to be joined by a very special guest. And as we start to kick off our conversation, we're really excited to talk about how we can build movements and how storytelling impacts movements and connects people and draws people together. We have a couple ways to connect people that I want to kick off with and talk a little bit about. First of all, we have coming up our Elevate conference. It is coming up in March. It is our 3-day conference. It is hybrid, and it is a deep dive into fundraising events. And so it's an opportunity for folks to gather together, learn a lot, send their fundraising event to school. And we just celebrated Indigenous Peoples Day. So I want to celebrate that. I want to mark that it is important that we acknowledge our history and acknowledge that we are on stolen lands.
Yes.
And we want to celebrate and acknowledge that we are coming to you today from the lands of the Multnomah, the Wasco, the Cowlitz, the Cathlamet, the Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Calpulya, Molalla, and many other tribes that make their home here in the Willamette Valley. Today, it is all about building movements, and movements are all about bringing people together. So we're excited to be joined by Devin Boss. Thank you for being here. And Kristen, let's introduce Devin to our audience.
Let's. So we first met Devin during the 100 Days of Protest that happened here in Portland during the pandemic in support of Black Lives Matter. And Devin was a part of and one of the principal filmmakers for Rose City Justice. And in seeing that work, we were really compelled by the storytelling and how that intertwines us and what that galvanizes us to do, and seeing Devin as a powerful voice in that. And not only is Devin's filmmaking beautiful storytelling, the narrative point of view calls out to me every time I see it, and how critical that is for what the story is and how it moves us to a place of action. So I want to do your formal bio because I think there's a lot here that can sort of help our folks understand the greatness we're talking to today. Yeah. So Devin Boss was born and raised in Northeast Portland. As the director and owner of Northeast Productions, he creates documentaries and short films that explore culture and the profoundly complex lives of individuals. Northeast Productions recently won 2 Telly Awards, bing, bing, for social impact in short-form broadcast documentary, as well as the Best Short Documentary Award and Portland Film Fest. They bring that same creative energy and structure into the brand work they do, leveraging the transformative power of story to galvanize their clients' audiences into action and driving lasting engagement. Their approach is very heart-centered and seeks to identify and underscore the human qualities that drive each subject. More importantly than any of that is their dedication to inclusivity and increased narrative autonomy for Black and Brown people. Welcome to the podcast, Devin.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks. I'm going to kick us off with kind of the biggie question.
Okay.
Movements, action, social justice movements, and their connection to storytelling, I think, is really critical. Often, the very basis of that is who is telling the story, who is behind the lens. I'd love if you can start us off today by talking about the idea of increased narrative autonomy. What does that look like and why is it critical?
Yeah. When I think about narrative autonomy, it's funny with the Indigenous Peoples Day, there's this old Indigenous saying that goes, those who tell the stories rule the world. Mm-hmm. And I find that to be just like a powerfully concise and salient message, because stories have the power to shape our realities. They have the power to galvanize and pacify, and they start wars, and they save lives. I think throughout time, we've used them to impart like wisdom and survival knowledge. We've also used them to help gain a deeper sense of self and place in the world. And so I think that tool outside of like a particular people's hand is detrimental. And so when I think about narrative autonomy, or for a lot of people historically a lack thereof, I think about like if you had like an assigned translator for like your entire life, and they didn't know you and they didn't look like you, and they didn't care about you and they didn't listen to you. And so they're just translated as like, I kind of want a burger. It's like, I think Devin wants oatmeal. It's like like that would really suck. And it would really be like stifling. And I think about the ways in which the unique light of Black and brown people is often dimmed, whether intentionally or unintentionally, by just like the suffocating weight of white supremacy sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I think, what are the generational consequences of that? Not just for those whom upon it's been inflicted, but like for the perpetrators as well.
Yes.
Like we all stand to benefit from sharing space and understanding each other's unique stories. Like that's like, if you're in the room and all I know is athletic stuff and you know math, but I don't like you, then I just don't get to know math.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's important for us to hear the experiences of other people. And like, what does it say about me if I don't get to say what my name is? Like if I don't get to correct you when you say my name wrong, like what is that? How does that, like where in your life do you see that impact, like that, the concessions that you make? And so I just think that there's something so powerful about why is it so important to like write your goals down rather than to just think them? Like there's something about like writing a thing down.
Yeah.
It's like you're giving yourself permission to want this thing. You put it into the physical world. And so like you are literally empowering yourself and giving yourself permission to live in your truth and your realness. And so since I've been a filmmaker, I just have felt, it's not that I haven't felt like the ability to be myself, but there is something about being yourself extra loud that's super important for yourself now and yourself in the future, and for the people around you who don't see that at all in their lives.
Yeah. Well, and in doing that out loud, you make it that we don't all continue to inherit inauthentic stories, right? I think the collective burden of that is also what we continue to perpetuate on each other.
Yeah.
Right? I've been told an inauthentic story by someone whose story it was not.
Yep.
And I continue to take that as knowledge and move that forward. And so it almost continues to increase the burden on the storyteller.
Yeah, it's like it just continues to compound upon itself, right? Like your depiction of me and the way that you broadcast it to the world thus impacts the way that I see my world, because I am like a product of my experiences. And so then I kind of I move in a way that wasn't true last month, but is more true next month because of the way that you've treated me. And so it's like reinforces whatever assumptions are held already.
Yeah. It's interesting. The work that we do in the nonprofit sector so often is movement building. And I think a lot of times organizations see that the people who are in the role of service, whose job it is to be a care provider, are protecting the people that they serve by, in their opinion, not sharing their story. And I think the thing that you taught me so much was the value of that collaborative action of giving people a voice where there is safe space created to share a voice. That, I mean, you and I were working on a story together about a woman who had had a pretty scary birth experience. So she was talking about something really vulnerable. I am a white woman. She is a Black woman. And you said to me, I think we'd be okay without you in the room. And I was like, what do you mean? And the footage you gathered, the footage you gathered was so much more powerful and stronger than if I had been conducting the interview, because you had a connection, a relationship to be able to give her a safe space to share her story. And in that, I think the protecting the folks that we serve by saying we're not sharing their story, actually, I think takes away and disenfranchises people.
Yeah. You know, I was just talking to one of my friends recently about a friend he has who's like a death doula. And we were talking about like what kind of spirit one has to have in order to engage in that kind of work, and how brave and how how tender you have to be, or how I don't know, what are the things that constitute that capability? And he was like, I think I could do it, but I wouldn't do it right because I would just wall myself off. And I was like, well, then you're not even doing the job. You know, you're just present while somebody passes. And I think there's a level of that exists in storytelling where it's almost like you're prioritizing your comfort over the person or over the person's
Yeah.
liberation.
Right.
And so I think if you can't find that tender balance, then it's best that we find somebody else that can create that space for somebody to feel like they have sovereignty in their story, or like to feel that comfort in the room, to like say the things that you say that you don't want to say, but you do want to say.
I think it's a
Yeah.
beautiful analogy that our liberation comes through our ability to tell our stories. You mentioned, Kristen, that when other people hold the narrative, it often is an untrue narrative. And I think that we saw that happening when we first met you. You picked up your camera to share narrative of the 100 Days of Protest. What we saw in the news was not at all what we were witnessing here in our community.
No.
The news narrative was definitely not the truth of what we were seeing with our own eyes. But was that the first time you picked up a camera? What motivated you to be telling story through film?
Man, it wasn't like the first time I picked up a camera, but it was like the first time I picked up a camera, I think, with conviction. And so, before that, I had been doing like music videos and other just like creative stuff, but I didn't really have a way to inject who I am and like my values into the work I was doing.
Yeah.
And I think Rose City Justice, I mean, that whole movement, just I was thrown into the fire as like a human being. Like I've always been aware of my Blackness. I've always been like a deeply Black and loving person, but I've never had any way to actualize myself as like a Black man, as like somebody that can be a meaning maker.
Yeah.
And so it was just like an opportunity for me to make like a real stand and to stand resolute in like whatever I was espousing was like as close to who I am as I've ever been. And further, like it brought 110% out of me. And so I think at the same time, I was in film school and I was working for a Black-owned film production company called Heart and Hustle. They were doing a lot of our film work as well. And I just learned a lot under their tutelage. And like I started realizing that I had like this voice, that I always had this voice.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you have meaningful work in front of you. Like when I just connected with you guys outside, you were asking how I was like, I got meaningful work. That's so dope. Like I have like meaningful, real challenges that I can, like at the very least, I can imbue my direct community with the meaning of like what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling, what we as RCJ were feeling and seeing through that complex time.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, I know our audience, we're sort of speaking specifically to the nonprofit sector, but broader. I think video storytelling gets collapsed into a not complex way in terms of, it's like, no, we're just going to have somebody hold the camera while these things are happening in front of it, which could not be further from the truth.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if you can speak to, from your vantage point, what video holds as a storytelling medium, and why is it your medium?
I think it's extremely powerful. I think, story and film, it has like this communicative flexibility that I think is super powerful. You're engaging multiple senses. And I think, when I think about like its ability to instantaneously change perspectives to communicate a thing. I think about like if you can go see Sweeney Todd live, or you can watch it in the movie theater. And if you're in the back watching it live, you might not be privy to exactly what the significance was of him being reunited with his barber blades, right? But in the movie, you get that close-up shot of his face. You get the close-up shot of the blades. You get his reflection. You get Miss Lovett in the back falling into like second place. And so there's this ability to switch and change perspective. And so if you're intentional enough in your filmmaking, then you're able to very accurately kind of convey the importance of any singular moment. Like in documentary, I get the cinema verite approach, where you let things unfold. And I love cinema verite, but I think I am more about perspective and trying to find out, okay, so what's about to happen? Like what's its significance in your life or in this moment? Like, and how can I help communicate that through this visual medium? And like, to answer your other question is like, why is this my medium? I think it's mainly my medium because I think I consider it largely like a windfall. Like I think I was doing music, a lot of music, pretty much my entire life since I was like in the 5th grade, saving up lunch money for studio time, and I thought that was what I was going to do for my entire life. And then, the universe kind of threw me a curveball. I ended up having 3 vocal cord surgeries within like 3 years.
Wow. Okay.
So I had my first vocal cord surgery. I ruptured my inner left vocal fold of my vocal cords, and had to have surgery. They had to make incisions in my throat, through the mouth. And then that happened 2 more years. And so by the 3rd one, you're just like, I got to reassess how I'm going to continue to be a creative human being.
Right.
And somehow I just transitioned to film. It just happened.
Yeah.
I bought a little Canon Rebel T6i, a flimsy little tripod and a Rode mic, and just started filming my friends and stuff. And that was kind of my journey, my path. But I was telling you earlier, it really wouldn't have bore real fruit in my life if it wasn't for Rose City Justice helping me to understand like the massive amount of like responsibility and power in this medium, that like I could just be making frivolous stuff for the rest of my life if I hadn't been acquainted with that movement. If I hadn't been introduced to that movement, I'd just be making nonsense and probably still working a 9-to-5 job. But once you add in that level of like the same kind of passion that one has in like their actual life into like, I was willing to give up anything for it. And so now it's so tightly aligned with who I am as a person, like from the ground up. And so like I went off on a little tangent there, but like it really is like the reason why it's my medium is because like just a few days ago, I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like I finally found what I'm supposed to be doing. And in an alternate universe, it was music, but in this universe, it is film. And like, when I watch films, like I cry, when I make films, I cry, like I'll be editing, I'm like wiping my tears, and so I never really have a moment where I don't want to do this. And and when I don't know exactly why I'm doing what I do, I don't always want to get up. And it's not always easy, but it's my medium because I just know it is my medium.
Well, it shows up in your work.
Yeah, you can feel that watching.
Yeah.
There's a certainty and a deftness to your point of view in those moments. And we're going to talk about this in a minute, but there's an awareness field for you too. And I'm wondering, when you talk about those moments when you're like, that's it, and you're, the hair on your arm goes up, or you're crying and watching, how much are you aware of audience in that moment as the conduit? Like you have what's happening in front of the camera, there's you, and then eventually there'll be the audience. Are you aware of that during the filming at all? Or
it's funny. I try to think about the audience as little as possible, like
Perfect.
in the moment. I think that in order for me to say whatever is true in my heart, like I have to not, like when you're talking to a person, I'm not thinking about what the person's what they're thinking about me. And it doesn't mean that I don't want them to respect me or to like love me. It just means that there's the only way that you're actually going to love me is if I'm me. And the only way I can be me is if I don't think about your expectations. And I also think, you get to a point where you're like, I have good taste. I know what's going on here. I like if you're making music, if you believe yourself to understand what good music is, then just make the good music and understand that like all music, there is not one single song that's for everybody. And so as long as what I'm saying is true to me, I know it's going to resonate with people because I am a person that exists with people. Like I'm not like a close-in. Like I am a member of a community, and I think that if something resonates with me, it's going to resonate with other people in the community and like potentially, hopefully in the future, in the larger world.
Well, you mentioned the moment that you're sitting there editing and a tear is brought forth because there's that emotional connection to the authenticity, the storyteller's voice, whether it be you yourself as a storyteller or the folks that you're interviewing. We do a lot of video work for nonprofits where we're telling a client's story or journey of impact, where they speak to a change moment in their life. And we often have nonprofits say, well, there was a tear, that means it was good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I feel like an emotional connection is the target that we're working toward.
Right.
And that can be joy, that can be elation, that can be nostalgia. Like there's so many emotions that can be connected. And yet the one emotion that is always the most impactful is authenticity. It is the one that moves needles. And I'm curious about when you're working on a piece and you're interviewing someone, that moment where you understand that you can actually create from a passive audience to an active audience, you can create something that moves people, that generates action, because your work does do that. Your work is very rooted in movement and in taking action and compelling people to do something. How do you, like, what frame do you take? What approach do you take? What is that moment when you see that you're creating a narrative or a story that is going to create action?
Yeah, I think like if I speak from just like a director standpoint or like sitting down with somebody, like it's really important that, and this is how I've been even before I was a filmmaker, it was like, you know, I was always like, my house was always the house that people came to. And so people would bring other people to my house. I always wanted people to feel comfortable around me. Or I always wanted people to feel at home, you know, and so I'm the host. I'm like pouring glasses of water for everybody, or you know, if my friend stays the night, I'm tucking them in. Like I'm just like the person that makes people feel like you can be here, like you don't have to question your belonging here. I don't really know you that well, but like say what you want to say. And so I don't think it's not difficult for me to extend that same thing to somebody that I'm interviewing. And so, like, you know, I often just talk to them normal before we even get the cameras rolling. I don't try to trick them. I don't try to do no weird stuff. I'm just like, who are you? Like, let's talk. If we haven't had a pre-interview, let's really talk. If we had, then let's catch up. And so that's super important. I think that there's like a level of authentic, like, emotional reinforcement that's really important for me. And what I think that a lot of like big name companies do really well in their marketing is they put their audience in the driver's seat and merge their story with the experience of their intended audience. And so, you know, I think about, you know, like if you're like a tech company or something, it's like, cool, I'm happy that you have like a lot of specs and like you're innovative and like that's what's powering your technology. But it's like, you can inundate me with all of that, or you can tell me how this device is going to help me connect to my newborn daughter who I haven't been able to see yet because I just got recently deployed. And I guarantee you that person's going to buy the phone before that person.
Right.
Because we are emotional creatures, you know, and like so many of the decisions that we make are based on emotion. Like more than likely, like some of the biggest decisions that we make are emotional decisions. And so I think that me being who I am already, just innately an emotional creature and somebody who wants to connect. I'm extremely gregarious. I was the kid in the basement, and if my older brother or older sister had like company, like I could feel their energy in the house. It wouldn't even be my company, you know. I just but I wanted them in the house. So all these different aspects of who I am, I think I just bring into that work, and it helps me to like genuinely like help to try and make you comfortable, and then to have like a conversation. Everything that I'm doing in my work, I'm just like, let's just have a conversation, like you guys are doing with me, you know, making it very easy for us to just have a conversation.
I witnessed that when we were filming in a home where it can be intimidating to have a film crew come into your home, right? Especially if you've never been on camera before. And I have witnessed so many folks have that like nervous excitement, like what is happening? What is going on here? It's like, don't mind us. There's cameras and lights. Ignore it entirely. And I watched this lovely client that was sharing her story go from that like nervous excitement and lots of questions into settling in and almost treating you as if you were her family. She pulled out photo albums and took you on a tour of her house and was opening drawers and showing you her life in a way that I don't think any other film crew would have gotten. It was that like, when we had a short timeline, like everything was working against us, right? And yet you settled into that moment, you connected with her, you made her feel comfortable and welcome, and then it showed up in her storytelling. Yep. And you got so much more of a story than I think we would have been able to get if she didn't have that connection to you. So it's palpable in what you do behind the camera.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it's like if we're talking and it's clear you don't give a shit about my breakfast. Yeah. You asked me what I had for breakfast. And I'm telling you. And it was really good. And I did this and I handmade that. And it's clear to me that you're not invested in that. My immediate reaction is I'm not right. Or my story's not right. Or I'm not telling it right. Or it's not important enough. My first jump is never, oh, Devin's not feeling it today. Devin got up on the wrong side of the bed, right? And so it changes who and how I am in that moment as a storyteller. And depending on what that interaction is, like if we turn the volume up on that, that changes my trajectory as a storyteller in my life forward. And so it's such a gift that you have to open that space up for folks. And I think sort of fusing your idea of action and authenticity in that, we've heard you say that story is the best way to communicate solutions.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think, often like when we start talking about anything in our lives, it's very likely that we're going to move into a story. I think that story is as old as time. I think like we now know or theorize that like story was one of the ways in which like in our earliest days we were like, I have something in my head, I have to get it into your head. It's just like how we are transmuting things. And so I think there's just like an element of transporting our audience through like the manipulation of what are they called? Mirror neurons, right? And so like they did like a test on like monkeys, and it was like one monkey was sitting down and had like a head scanner on, and another monkey was sitting across from him, and they gave him a banana and not him a banana, which is kind of cruel. And that monkey got to peel a banana, and like these sensors started like lighting up in this monkey's head, and so he essentially was having the same sensations that monkey was having eating a banana. And so it's like the same reason why I cry when I watch a movie, or you feel frustrated when you see something. Excuse me. And so there's something so powerful, and there's like deep implications in knowing that like even on a scientific level, we are triggering things because we are a social species. Yeah. That is clearly the best way to communicate to people. And it doesn't have to be film, but I think it has to be story, like anecdotal. Like if a doctor's telling me why I should do this, if he goes into like some sort of anecdote about why it's been helpful, I think it's more likely that I'm going to take that suggestion. Like a lot when they were talking about immunization and stuff like that, I think that a lot of people were like, people were talking about how the flu was giving people, was it Down syndrome or something like that? Yeah. And there wasn't any actual like verifiable, like it was unsubstantiated.
Right.
But what the doctors didn't do is they didn't provide like their own story. They just kept hurling data. And like we don't really respond to data, we respond to story. Yeah. And so I think that, stories already have data within them. As long as the storyteller's doing their job right, these things already have built-in information. Yeah. And I think data and information is like a story waiting to be told. Yeah. And so I think if I'm an audience member and all you're supplying me with is data, then it's like you're asking me to tell the story for myself. Right. At which point you've probably lost me. And so you have a short amount of time to tell somebody why you're here, how you can help them, how you can solve their problem, how you can change their life, whatever you're trying to convey. And I think story is how you move people through that. And like, our brains are just story processing machines.
Yeah. Well, and if you don't take the opportunity to tell the story, you've just abdicated your opportunity to really impact someone else in that way. Stories are sticky.
Yeah, exactly. And you can move, you can move through like that 3-act structure or whatever structure very, very clearly, very cleanly. Yeah. But like, I think data doesn't really have like it doesn't necessarily, not that it doesn't have, but it just doesn't have like that palpable like through line. It doesn't have like that one that you can feel in your body.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when you have a meaningful connection, it's lasting. And it impacts the way that you move or the decisions that you make. When you hear information, you could forget it instantly.
Yep.
And so I think that sticky quality is why story is so vital to how we deliver our messages to our intended audiences.
You wouldn't believe how many leadership executive directors, CEOs think that it's the data that will move us because they live and breathe in their numbers. They live and breathe in their data.
There's no heartbeat in it.
Yeah, no.
There's literally no heartbeat
They
in
also understand the data, right? Like they're able to turn the data into a narrative that their audience may not be able to make that connection as easily. And when we speak to organizations about, no, we are hardwired to learn through story narrative in our mirror neurons and how our heartbeat connects. I mean, the study out of University of London that they measured heartbeats of an audience during a theater production. And the heartbeats in the audience literally synced up. All 350 people in the audience had the exact same heartbeat and rhythm.
That's so crazy.
And if they had a relationship to each other and they were connected to the story narrative happening on stage, the sync continued all the way through after the show and through intermission. That
so
they didn't
powerful.
have to be sitting in that theater for them to still be synced up. And so we're literally hardwired in the way that we connect and learn and like experience the world to do it through story. And then we have CEOs are like, no, I have to get up and present the data. And like, I promise you it will not resonate.
No, data is making hearts stop.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true. It's making blood run cold.
It's true. We're going to take a break.
Speaking about heart stopping.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I'm that person. We're going to take a quick break to thank some of our amazing partners. And we're going to come back and talk storytelling with Devin. We'll be right back.
Unleash the power of events to energize your donors and amplify your mission. Join us at the Elevate Conference in 2025, where you'll learn the essential tools for planning a successful fundraising event. Book your tickets now for March 12th and 13th. This dynamic hybrid conference, hosted at Avenue in Portland, Oregon, and streamed live for our virtual audience, will equip you with practical tools, demos, and templates that you can put to work immediately. Don't miss out. Secure your spot today at Elevate 2025. Visit elevatenonprofit.com to register now. Elevate Conference 2025 is brought to you by Swaim Strategies and the AV Department, powered by elevatenonprofit.com.
Welcome back. We are here with Devin, an amazing filmmaker and storyteller. I am always curious in talking to artists about the cart horse thing of structure and content and which comes first. So when you're filming or making a film, does what you capture filming dictate the structure, or do you go in with a sense of the structure and capture film to suit?
I think I'm definitely structure first. I think the main thing, especially in this last year or so, the main thing I'm trying to figure out is like what's like our really popular, I guess, writer calls it his armature, or like the theme. What's the skeleton of what we're doing? Why are we doing this? What are we trying to say? What's the essence of it? If I can understand that, then I think everything else grows from that. So it's like laying the foundation, the soil. That's a huge part of it. I think if I have that, then like I feel like it's about being focused. And so it allows me to play in a sandbox rather than trying to find something on a vast beach.
Yep.
So if your theme is get busy living or get busy dying, then we know that like everything in each scene should probably be in some way reflected in that. And so I think it takes a lot of the guesswork out of stuff, and you can be more intentional. And so yeah, I think that's kind of like the way that I like to move as far as like figuring out our direction. And then from there, I mean, you can figure out your font. Like from like everything can like be informed by that decision. And so yeah, I think and then just kind of like being simple. Especially if we're talking about doing like client work, it's like you can have like a 3-act structure system, a proposal, argument, conclusion, throw a character in there, conflict resolution. I think that just makes a lot of sense, and we're wired to like kind of want those things anyways. And you can those things can rise and unfold and be resolved in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. We've seen it in many short films. So I try to bring that same approach that I have with documentaries and short films to the same work that I do with like clients. It's like, why are we here? What are we saying? Who are we saying it to? And yeah, I think those are like the most important things. And then your B-roll and all that beautiful stuff is informed, and it doesn't feel as arbitrary.
Yep.
And so then everything connects and lines up.
Yep.
I think that when our organizations are busy trying to feed people, house people, find solutions in education, environment, it is really hard to think of how do we tell the story of the work that we do. And you just gave like a storytelling 101 class in like 10 seconds. It was amazing. But the structure is something that we also approach with is what is the sandbox that we're building? What are we trying to accomplish so that then we understand how our time is being used? And we usually will approach it from the idea of having a video treatment or sort of a frame that we're building off of that indicates this is the story of, this individual, this was their experience that we know going in. And the big thing we really want to make sure to focus on is how these things impacted them so that going in, you already have that. And that starts to put a frame on what are the tools we use to capture the interview? What are the different tools in the toolbox that we're playing with? And there are a lot of tools like voiceover and the ability to use B-roll and music, and there's and overlays and fonts that can help us in that storytelling. Can you talk a little bit about that toolbox when folks are trying to think about how to tell this story? What are some of the tools that you use, and how do those inform sort of your process going in?
I use a lot of those tools you described in so many of my projects. I think what's important is laying the foundation that we just talked about, and then the rest of it, like if I give it enough structure, then it frees me to feel.
Yeah.
Like if I give it the framework, then
say that again.
Yeah, please say that again.
Well, if I build the structure properly, it frees me to feel. Like that way. Like okay, you can work completely intuitively or like off a feeling or off a response, but you might be missing the mark. But if you line things up, you can feel, and you have there's like a bungee cord attached to the project. And so I can just kind of like feel and do whatever I need to do. And I know I'm going to be reined in at any point by the structure that I previously built. And so when I edit like almost entirely off of emotion and feeling and just like what feels right. Like when I'm adding the music, like I will, like, all right, so in our discovery meeting, I asked you, what are the feelings that we're trying to evoke? And so my search for music is under those parameters. So I grab a bunch of stuff based off of the content, and I'm just like, I'm watching like the rough cut, and I'm listening to music, and I'm going over stuff, and like whichever one feels like the one, like if I get goosebumps or if I start tearing up or whatever, and I feel like normally if I feel that way, the audience is going to feel that way. And so I just kind of feel my way through it. The cuts, the motion on the timeline, you just know it's right. Once at some point, you just know it's right. You feel it. And sometimes, the client is like, let's change it. Sure. But like, it doesn't mean it was wrong.
Right.
And so I think voiceover is extremely powerful and such like a powerfully concise tool to help guide our audience through the entirety of this piece. Yeah. Whether it's doc work or whether it's work for nonprofit organizations. I think that's like, we were talking about earlier. I feel like it's like a cheat code. Like voiceover. Like if like there's like, it's like something's not connecting. Well, then we can just do a little bit of this.
It's magic.
It's magic. It's a cheat code because you can. It's like it's the same as like having text on screen, but I think it takes. When you have to have text on screen, that means you can't have imagery on the screen, or it complicates things. So you can just continue moving as planned and just add that voiceover in, and things it feels there's a level of fluidity. And so all these things I think have their place. And I guess to close this answer is like, I just try to give myself room to kind of feel my way through it.
Well, and it seems too, what I appreciate hearing you talk about some of the tools, you're implementing them in a very concrete, intentional way so that I do not have to be quite so concrete and intentional in my watching. It's like you're removing the speed bumps to me being a part of this. What you're speaking to is this universal storytelling structure. It's literally hardwired in us as humans. And when people screw around with that, we jolt around, right? And if they're doing it intentionally because they know the structure and they're breaking that, that's a totally different jam, right? Yeah. But if they don't know and are not going, I can't go with them because I'm spending all of my time in free fall trying to figure out, like, can I grab this? Nope, can't grab that. Nope. How do I have that parachute? Nope, I don't. And so I love hearing you talk about that structure actually is the liberation.
Yeah, and it's like I don't think we necessarily even invented the structure, really. I think that we are an observer of it.
Yeah.
So like, it's like beginning, middle, and end. It's like everything that's ever existed in the universe is beginning, middle, and end. Yeah. So it's only natural, and so it's only natural for our bodies to want to be in sync with that order.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Partnership. I want to talk a little bit about partnership between you as a storyteller and the folks you were helping be a conduit for stories for. And I think when we're thinking about nonprofits and the videos they make for their organizations, the best have great collaboration at the core.
Yeah.
And so what does a good partnership between the director and the videographer and the organization, what can that look like? I really want to encourage folks to think bigger than hired gun, right? Yeah. They're like, we need a video. We need somebody to literally come in with a camera and shoot that. And it's like, no. You're hiring a storyteller.
Yeah, I'm not a mercenary.
No. So what is that story? What can that storytelling partnership look like for folks? How can they shift gears from here's what we need to have happen to how do we do this together?
Yeah, I think any organization that enlists the aid of a film production company or a videographer should see themselves as a co-director. So I think that's really what it is. I'm finishing up a project with this amazing organization, Mesa, and their executive director and another one of their affiliates. I've just been working hand in hand with them on the entire project. It's been so much more enjoyable. I felt so much more supported, and I felt like I was doing the work that they needed done.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a level of attunement that I can't really achieve if we have like one little meeting and you guys hit me with like bullet points and I think ultimately I'm still gonna do a good job, but it's not gonna be as enjoyable. And there's that connection. Like I don't feel fully connected to your organization, and the more connected I feel, the less work I have to do trying to figure out what you mean. Like I'm so attuned to your organization. I've been talking with you. Maybe we've had lunch a couple times, or like we've gone over these ideas, or I can bounce things off of you. You're readily accessible because the project that we're working on isn't peripheral to you.
Yeah.
It feels core and you understand the power of what we're trying to accomplish. Now, if you don't see it that way, then you might not make yourself available, and you might just kind of like, send me the rough cut when it's ready, blah, 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 blah. And I mean, that's one way to do it, but I think that you're missing out on like this immense amount of meaning making and change that you can like see for your own organization through this project.
Yep. And when you as a storyteller aren't having to ask your co-director, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Your audience is also not having to ask, what do you mean?
Exactly.
That attunement carries all the way through.
Yeah, I think that's true for us too. I mean, when we're in a planning process with an organization, our work is to come in and help them to produce an experience that is a 3-hour story, right? It's an immersive story because we're bringing people together in a room, but we see the event as an entire story, and each of those elements are fueling part of that story. But we are not experts in the work that they do. And so it is hard sometimes to understand and learn the complexities of preventing poverty, right? Like that's a topic that is so layered, or healthcare systems, right? And how to create access to healthcare, again, like system upon system upon system, that they're able to get to outcomes and like impacts so quickly because it's their work day in and day out.
Yeah.
And when they're in the process with us and it's a longer relationship and partnership in that process, the story we tell in the event is so much better and so much stronger than we sort of get what they do. That's really hard to then convey to an audience, right?
Yeah.
But when we get what they do, when we understand viscerally the impact that they have, then the audience leaves with that same understanding.
Yeah, it feels like there's like there's something more confident about it. There's something stronger about it. It's like the opposite of like, there's that guy on the date that's nervous and he won't shut up. It's like you're talking too much. You're talking about nothing. It's like if you,
Yes.
there's like, okay.
That's such a good analogy.
It's great.
It's like, if you really know what you're talking about, if you're really confident, you can be clear. Cause what's that? Brene Brown said, clear is kind, you know? And so it's like so true. And like, if I understand where you're coming from, then I can eliminate all of anything that feels superfluous and we can be very clear and very concise and very direct, and we can imbue it with emotion. So like our audience is fully like attuned and like they're coming with us on this ride and they understand exactly what's happening, just like intuitively.
Yeah.
And they can handle it.
Yeah.
Right? I think sometimes we undercut that.
Do you know the work of Paul Zak at all?
What's the name again?
Paul Zak.
Maybe. I don't know.
He's a neuroscientist, social scientist. He does a lot of research into human behavior and what impacts human behavior. And he has a book that just came out recently in the past year or so called Immersion. And it's that idea of like, when do you connect the dots in the story and the experience that moves people in their actions, that creates that emotional connection, that secures the vote, buys the product, creates a lifetime supporter, donor, what is that? And psychological safety is a big one that he talks about, that if people don't feel safe and understand how to participate, then they don't participate. And storytelling, I think, is such a comfortable way to create psychological safety.
Yeah.
And us, like as event producers, storytellers, video sort of artists, being able to bring story forward, we're creating that landing pad that creates the psychological safety to say, oh, I understand how to participate in this.
Yeah.
So I think that understanding that narrative and being a partner to the organization yields a bigger outcome too, and that in the environment of the watcher, the viewer, the participant, we're able to move them to action faster if they feel comfortable, and story allows us to feel comfortable. But the nervous guy on the date who won't stop talking is the quickest way to create discomfort, right?
Absolutely.
And the response to that is, I'm out of here,
Well, and the whole restaurant is kind of watching that situation and nobody's rooting for it.
No one.
They're like, no.
If we all want this to end.
Do us all a favor. Speaking of which, we're going to take a quick break.
Yeah.
Thanks some of our partners, and then we'll be back with Devin.
Are you ready to engage supporters and grow your base with your own podcast? Then let us introduce you to our partners at the AV department in Portland, Oregon. In addition to delivering exceptional live event audiovisual production and videography, they also have a top-tier production studio and an expert team ready to take your content ideas to the next level. Contact the AV department to schedule a consultation and start bringing your podcast vision to life.
All right, welcome back to the fundraising elevator, where we're all headed up. We're going to ask Devin to step into the fundraising elevator with us. We really like to be able to share with our nonprofit friends tips, advice, key things that they can take away from every episode. So as our fundraisers are starting to think about their stories and how they're sharing stories, what's your tip? How would you recommend folks head up?
When I think about like what I would want people to think about is like, what's the emotional resonance of like what we're talking about? Is it there? Like after this entire conversation that we've been having, I think the first thing that should be on top of mind is like, there are a myriad of stories that we can tell, but which ones are going to connect the most profoundly with the people that you're trying to connect with? And I think that like you have to care about the story as much as you care about the story's result, or like what you're getting out of it. So where's that emotion coming from? Are you actually feeling it, or are you just kind of like hoping that somebody feels like, once again, when I do stuff, it comes from my feeling first, and then I trust that other people are going to feel it.
Yep.
So I just, it might go against like the core of who these guys are, but like, you got to feel it.
Yeah.
And so I would just say continue to lean into, like, I don't subscribe to the idea that the head's more important than the heart. Like, very much, I do not. And so I think just like remind yourself that, like, I think we are so stirred by the heart. And like, you don't have to discount the head, but I mean, just feel, sometimes it's okay to feel your way through it.
The head will follow.
The head will follow.
Yeah.
Well, and we're talking about mission-based organizations when we're speaking to the nonprofit sector. And I think sometimes the busy work disconnects from why I said yes to this mission in the first place.
Yeah.
And so reorienting back to that, I think that's a great tip. Whenever we talk to you, you have an amazing docket of things you're working on. What do you have in the world right now? And what's coming up?
Okay. So I'm working on the second episode of my, the second iteration of a docuseries that I'm producing called Where We Going? It's about Black artists and Black entrepreneurs. The first episode is about DJ OG1 and the Creative Homies. The second one is about Intisar Abioto, who's a beloved Black portrait photographer, as well as the Albina Vision Trust.
Oh.
Yes.
So that story is going to be extremely powerful. I'm so blessed to have had the opportunity to tell that story. And we are coupling that with a love letter from Miss Sharon Gary Smith, who was the former president of Portland's chapter of the NAACP.
Yep.
So she's going to be doing a love letter similar to the one that I did with Paul Knowles to his late wife Geneva. And so like that, there's kind of like a formula there that we're trying to maintain, and that'll be all folded into an event called Black Friday that we're hosting at Hollywood Theater again this year, November 8th.
Awesome.
So if you guys are around November 8th, please join us. It's going to be an amazing time. Last year was so beautiful. And I don't think Hollywood Theater really gets to rock in the way that we kind of rock it that often. So I'm very excited for that. I just finished a documentary called What We Lost Along the Way. It was sponsored by Travel Oregon, and it's just about Black connectivity to the natural world. It's really just showcasing the splendors of Oregon's beautiful landscape and the importance of connecting to the natural world, and just trying to use film and story to dispel the notions that Black people don't belong in the great outdoors. I think it's core, it's central to who we are, who we always have been. And so I won't go too much into it, but it's something that's really close to my heart. And I have a few other documentaries that I'm producing and trying to get those done before the end of the year. So the year's almost, it feels like it's really getting away from us. So I got plenty of work left to do. But just a few things that I'm working on.
Just a couple of things, he says with a big smile. How can folks get a hold of you?
Instagram. People can find me on Instagram, Devin, Devin, Boss, Boss. You can always email me. I'm open. You can hit me up on my website, Northeast Prod. Northeast is spelled out. Prod, short for production. I think those will probably be the best ways. Honestly, I'm trying to stay away from Instagram a little bit these days, mental hygiene and whatnot. But please feel free to reach out.
Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story and so many insights today. As we are helping organizations dive into their big fundraising event season, fall tends to be the fundraising event season. Stories are such an important part of that. So we appreciate you being here, and we hope folks tune in next week. We're talking to Kurt Bedell. Kurt is joining us to talk about guest experience. So we hope folks will join us again. And thank you for coming and sharing some insights and wisdom with us today.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
Appreciate you a bunch.
The Fundraising Elevator is produced in partnership with Swaim Strategies at the studios of the AV department. The program is produced and directed by Steve Osborne, with audio engineering and original music by Dwayne Anderson, Heidi Christensen, and Adam Breeden. Video production by Shannon Doran. Graphic design by Pendulum Creative Group. Marketing by Lisa Aragon. Support from Mary Elizabeth, Todd Campbell, John Lyles, and Andy Dowsett. And voiceover by Josh Boykin.
Hey
Hey y'all, it's Kristen. Before we leave, I want to ask for your help to make the podcast grow. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please like, follow, and subscribe to the Fundraising Elevator. And if you're getting a lot out of the show, share it with a friend. Leave us a review. These things help make sure that the podcast continues heading up. Thanks so much for being here and tuning in.
Ready to take your fundraising to the next level? Need to get unstuck in your event planning? Now's your chance to connect directly with the experts behind the Fundraising Elevator. Book a one-on-one consulting session with Sam for strategic planning and fundraising strategy, with Kristen for your program and storytelling, or Mary for your registration and data tools. They're here to provide you personalized answers to all your event questions. Don't wait. Raise more at your next fundraising event. Book your session today at elevatenonprofit.com. You can also find the link in the show notes. Event planners are discovering Avenue, the Pacific Northwest's new AV-forward event venue, intentionally designed with nonprofit fundraising events in mind. From the 93-foot video production wall to the highest quality sound and lighting, premier AV features are included in every venue rental. You'll find the space and audiovisual enhancements to create your unique and memorable event. Visit avenueportland.com to schedule your personal tour.